Everybody, and welcome to our March 11th board meeting. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered together tonight on the unsurrendered traditional territory of the Cochin-Shanxi speaking people. And as an uninvited guest on these traditional lands, I would like to acknowledge that I am consistently and continuously educating myself on the truth as we move towards reconciliation. Yes, so as we begin, I would like to call for an adoption of the agenda. Trustee Meyer, seconded trustee Dalton. Trustee Meyer.
Can I make an addition to the agenda?
An amendment?
Amendments.
You bet.
7.1.1 a capital bylaw plan, 2022.
Thank you. And I have a motion on the floor to accept the agenda as amended. All in favor? Wonderful. So moved. Thank you. And a presentation on to you, Superintendent Samuel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we are pleased to have Mike McDowell, Vice Principal at ACO Roosevelt Park Elementary School. And Mike will be presenting on all sorts of wonderful things with the French immersion program at his school and perhaps in the district.
Thank you, sir.
All yours.
Amahupo. Bonsoir. Good evening. My name's Mike. I'll stay out of the camera view back here. But yeah, it was very honored to chat a little about the French immersion program. I wasn't really sure exactly what angle or what you'd like me to present, so I kind of took a general all around just to kind of help enlighten all the board members about everything and anything French immersion. And so I do have a wonderful helpful, so he's gonna help me go through this. So what's French immersion? Obviously it's a program here in BC that's designed for students to, obviously use a language that's not their own. French is not their first language. They're coming to learn French, and that's something that we've been using for many years. The strategies and materials, we keep that in mind as well, knowing that these students don't know the full language. And so it's a lot of hands-on learning, a lot of things like songs and play that kind of help build up some of these ideas and strengths for them. And again, this program goes from K through 12, all in French. Benefits, I'm sure this is fairly widely known, but I always like to highlight it. The big one would be that the students are using their own knowledge that they have in the outside world and then trying to transfer it into something new and something different to try to challenge them. And the language skills are kind of developed and picked up over time, especially at the young ages where I'm working at Roosevelt, especially the really early ages, it's repeated in English and then in French. But then through time, strictly in French immersion, they kind of develop their own strategies for words in their own minds. So the big one is bilingualism can help students kind of grow cognitively, their own thinking and strategies kind of become more flexible and creative the way they're doing it. These are the benefits that parents are signing their children up when they come to our program. So that's what we're going for. One myth I kind of want to just address, and that's why I put it in here, is sometimes over the years, we've heard some parents ask, well, is it a totally different curriculum? What they learn? No, not at all. It's exactly the same curriculum that we laid out in BC. It's just in French. There are a few little tweaks, a little bit specific for French learning, but essentially when it comes to sciences, math, social studies, c'est juste tout en français. Everything else is exactly the same. So particularly with our school district 52 one, I'll go through a few different numbers and kind of give you guys some basics. Overall in BC, it was started back in 68, 69. So the program has been around a lengthy time. Currently, there's about 53,000 across the province, 9% of the overall population. We here in Prince Rupert, we started our program in 85. And again, we're about that 10% population. We currently have about 183. Fluctuates, I think we started the year about 186. Sadly, some families move away, but as I mentioned earlier, we have some new families moving in from Kitimat, so we kind of add to it. And our hope is we'll always stay in that 10 to 11% range. So very much on par for what we see across the province. Across the different schools, so as I always highlight to all our French immersion families, we do have 3 different French immersion schools. We start them off in at Roosevelt, where I'm working currently. We have 86 students across 5 different classes, and then they move up to Prince Rupert Middle School. At the moment, we have 3 different grades right there. We have a very large cohort in grade 6. About 26 or 27 children, so we've actually expanded it. For the last few years, it's been 2. This time we have 3 kids there, or 3 classes there. And Charles Hayes is kind of a collective, just because there are smaller amounts. And we have 44 students there for a total of 183. Basics, I'm just going all over these ones. Big one for percentage wise too, kindergarten, they don't always go into, start in 100% French. Don't want to confuse the poor kids. We kind of build that up, as I said, through songs. Dinesh will know this very much because his child is actually in one of those classes. So it's a bit of, you almost repeated yourself over and over, once in English, once in French, once in English, once in French. By grade 1 though, 100% French. Move in, kind of depends on French on the phys ed teacher. Some aspects, depending if it's a teacher who's covering for a prep period, that might be in English, but for other than that, it should be 100% in French. And that continues up till grade 5, when English is kind of reintroduced. Another large concern with parents is, well, when's my child going to learn English? And it's a legit concern. The only thing is, we happen to live in an all English environment, where they're outside of it. As soon as we step outside those classrooms and those hallways, they're in an English environment already. So that's why it's very precious to keep the French inside those classrooms as much as possible. And then as they move through middle school, they start to take more phys ed, exploratories, band, that's gonna be all in English, and progressively get to grade 11 and 12, where they're only really doing 2 full courses, Francais Langue and World French. So, it's a very, very tight little group. The cool part with this one is, again, they stick with their homogeneous little group the whole way through. So if they start in, kindergarten with their core group of friends and colleagues, they're going to continue all that way even through high school. So you develop almost like a brotherhood or sisterhood with those folks, actually. It's very fun, unique. Next. Another kind of one I wanted to touch on here too is a myth is, well, we're kind of exclusive in the French one. It's not for everybody. Wrong. We do have a huge amount of diversity within our classes. So not only you can speak any language you want at home. So not just French or English. A lot of parents are concerned, well, I don't really speak French at home. Doesn't matter. That's what you guys, stick with learning English. We'll keep going on the French. But even within our classes, we have a huge amount of other families who are new to Canada and who are coming here with all sorts of different languages brought in there. And some of the ones we have are Ukrainian, Japanese, Mandarin, the list that's on there. Even we have some new families that are from Nigeria and Ghana who speak completely different languages, yet their children are actually still doing quite well picking up French. Indigenous content is still quite high there. Obviously, we have 33% of our students that are Indigenous, and the exceptionality students with exceptionalities is about 8% currently, and that's really close to provincial averages, which are across the board at 10. So yeah, again, very diverse classrooms. So one thing I want to touch with you guys, especially being board members, is how French immersion on our particular program is funded. So we do get a special group, and I'll let you click on the next one. We are able to apply for OLEP, the Official Languages Education Protocol. And this is money coming from federal dollars. They kind of work in agreement with the BC government and then be able to provide districts based on how many students they have a set amount of funding. So, and obviously someone can highlight a few more of the intricacies of it all. But I think it was 2020. They signed an agreement for 3 years. And we were, based on that one, receiving $74,000 for our students. And it did expire last year. They renewed it 1 more extra year, same number, same level. And it's looking that this way they're going to do it because they're currently in discussion with the provinces. BC and the federal government are still talking about a new agreement over 3 or 4 years. So we'll still continue that level of money, but they have said that any new money, once the new agreement comes out, will then just be added to our stuff retroactively. So what do we spend this money on? The big thing we spend money on, 40% within that agreement says that we can spend our money on some salaries. So that usually goes towards a teacher. Or I know a lot of districts will actually use that money to hire or pay towards a French director as well. So that one's done. So 40%, but within that pool of money, we can purchase learning assistant materials, tech grant. So we're able this year to spend some of our money and then upgrade some of the touch screens at all the French immersion classes. So just moving away from smart boards because they're kind of sunsetting that particular technology, and we're able to apply for some new ones, which will hold up over the next decade or so. And again, learning resources, cultural activities, all sorts of interesting little bits and pieces. The note on the bottom too is core French. So some of the students who did not learn or are not part of French immersion, that money is still there to help pay for it. It's about, last time I checked, is about $5,000. We're able to supply some of the different schools who want to, take in different courses, get some of those educational pieces that some of the kids who are just learning the French, because we're just all about the French language. So I'm gonna highlight a couple of different activities that we've done over the year. I didn't get into too many, just a few. First one was Carnival, very popular, always happens somewhere about February each year. Roosevelt and PRMS hosted again this year. We have Madame Carnival, who always makes an appearance, and they do different activities there like dancing. Quite often they'll do tir sur la neige, which is kind of pouring maple syrup on some snow, and the kids kind of get a fun activity on there. Past years, they've also done a king and queen, all sorts of different activities. So it's a great one that we kind of tried to do here. The next one, Will Jams was able to come, and we had a thank you AFNO out there. They did an amazing job paying for Will Jams, and so the entire French immersion program was invited and able to come to an all French show. So not just a bilingual one, but to actually have a performer on that one too. So that was a beautiful one. Other things that they've done over the last couple of years, the middle school did take their entire team out to North Pacific Cannery because last summer they did have someone who spoke French out there. So they were able to take them around, speak French, give the tour en français, and then we had lunch on the deck actually. As you can see, we got lucky with some great weather that particular day. Unfortunately, we didn't get great weather when we went to our French picnic, but the kids still made the most of it when we went up to Diana Lake. This is something we're going to continue on. I think again, this year it's already preset for June. Obviously Mother Nature pending, but that's a neat time to bring the kids out. We were able to get a couple of swim guards and kind of allow all the kids to kind of come together. Same with the teachers, because we don't get enough opportunities to bring all our French immersion staff together at the different schools. So and it's a nice way, some of the teachers and the students to kind of reminisce and see some of their old teachers get together and stuff like that. So that's something we're definitely trying to continue on to. Especially with our help from CPF, Canadian Parents for French. They're often going to help us pay for little activities like this or go skating. That's another one that they've done as well. So we try to incorporate little bits and pieces of French where and how we can in an all English environment. It's very, very difficult sometimes. So what are my goals, I guess, especially as a new to the job director, what would I'd like to do for SD 52 and the French program? I did come up with 3 different ones. So one thing I was able to start during my master's program and working with Roberta in the Indigenous Education Department is working towards translating some of the Adao, particularly the Tamshin series, into French. They're available across all classrooms, but it's translating Somali into English. French kids, or at least in our classes, don't have access to that. So we're able to, at the moment, we have translated the 4 different texts into French. And I'm hoping within the next month, we will be sitting down with some of the elders and trying to just make sure that nothing's missed in the translation part. And so hopefully those texts will be available in French in all the classrooms come next year. So kind of nice, and there aren't really a whole lot of Indigenous texts in French across the province. So something that is not as much as you'd actually think. So we're trying to kind of help out and share our resources as well. What again, I'm also trying to look at is regular exchange programs. So one program that's very popular, I believe the high school is actually using it this year, Experiences Canada. They do have one for linguistic exchanges. And so this particular program is an amazing one, funded by the federal government. It covers all the costs for students, including flights. And I guess they kind of hook them up with different families staying over there. The only thing parents would really have to pay for would be a $250 application fee and some spending money. And it puts them there over, depending on where they are able to pair up. That's the tricky part for us, is trying to someone who really wants to come to Prince Rupert, not Vancouver or, Kelowna or Kamloops. But luckily we do have some former teachers who happen to live back to Quebec. So I'm working my best to try to convince them that they want to come back here and visit for a while. And so we would spend a week, or our students would spend a week over in Quebec or Ottawa area, various places like that. They get to spend time actually in the schools with the other students that they're staying with, do some different cultural activities, all in French, and then vice versa. They would come back here usually about May, and then we can show them all the beauty that Prince Rupert holds. So I want to try to do that with middle school and high school. And the last one I'm kind of looking was actually inspired me this year, because we were lucky enough at Roosevelt to have a high school student come in and kind of work with one of the teachers to almost be like an aide in the class and help out using the French skills, especially with kids. And so what I'm gonna do is kind of try to look, we already have a work experience program, but if there's any other kind of more permanent kind of a credit course that we could maybe create for the French immersion specific students, so they could come back and work with the younger kids. And maybe even look at ways that we could possibly fund something about like a permanent 1-year full-time position, because as the students come out of the high school, and maybe a lot of students are staying up here for at least 1 year while they're going to school, we could offer those French immersion students possibly a 1 year as like an EA or, training for them to become a school and still work within our school, so we can maintain them, still use those people that we need in French. It'll take a little work, but I think that's something we could look at, and maybe the board could consider, thinking about how we can try to harness some of our French resources that we already have and that we've trained and, hung on to, and then keep them here for at least another year while they're schooling and help get back to the program. That's the big one. And my last one, some needs. These are some of the things, we have lots of happy ones, but some of the things that we desperately need in our program. So currently, I'm the learning services teacher at Roosevelt. I was pretty good. I will say it's not been my forte. I'm learning on the job. But I know there's lots of people out there who are more qualified than I am. And so we need to try to find and install a French-speaking learning service teacher full-time at Roosevelt. The big one here would be, as we're moving with literacy intervention, students who are struggling to read. It's been a really interesting year of learning myself, but help them with some of their basic sounds and letters and basics on learning, because as they grow there, they'll become much more successful. Over the years, it's been kind of hit and miss at Roosevelt, where we have someone who's able to speak French in that role. As much as we want to give them literacy interventions, if we can provide those in French, all the better. And again, as I said, this kind of goes with our priority with our strategic planning, because we want literacy priority. So you guys have set that. And so that's where I think this falls into that, trying to get those aids and supports to the kids on the French immersion side, because there's still lots of needs and supports there. So having someone full-time who is bilingual in that position is key. So hopefully we might have someone in mind. I'll keep you posted on. And my last one, much like you guys will hear for the next few months, especially as you're moving towards, budgets and so on. We just need more French-speaking personnel in our district, especially on the EA side. Teachers, we're always looking for extra French immersion teachers, but in EAs, we just don't have a lot of support. We're trying to find ways to do it. It's just rather difficult. So at the moment, we have 2 BAs across our entire program. So, and they're both at Roosevelt. One is a kindergarten teacher, so she is currently and solely in that one particular class. And we have one teacher, one EA who kind of hops around to the different classes for very small blocks at a time to aid those teachers. Whereas we have no EA support in PRMS or CHS or CHSS all Francais. So that is one we would like to address. And it's tough because it's trying to find personnel who speak French at a high enough level that they can be up in there and be a support. And that's not easy, but those are the things that we kind of need to help give as much support as we can to some of our students who deserve it for sure. And that concludes my presentation. Very quick and orderly. Any questions? Happy to have some.
Yes, trustee Dalton.
Oui, madame.
The learning service teacher full-time.
Yep.
How many hours is that?
It's a teaching position, so as many hours as you'd probably like to put into that one. But it would be a full-time position, anywhere, it'd be, as a teacher, I guess that's 40 hours a week, basically, full-time, 100% of the time. At the moment, Roosevelt has a 0.8 and a 1.0. And so depending on who might be in those particular roles, we would love to have a 1.0 French immersion teacher. Although when you're an LST, you have to encompass and look after the entire school in that role. But having that ability to speak French and help out on the French side is huge. And I've done my best to fill in that role this year. But you know, looking forward and you know, I might be in a different position somewhere soon. Having somebody to replace me in that position would be ideal.
When you say schools, you mean the entire district?
This one, when I'm looking at LST, I would like for Roosevelt particularly because those are the early interventions we like to do. You know, we
Okay.
catch the kids when they're struggling with reading, get them early, for sure, yeah. Anything else?
Trustee Warren.
Thank you for your presentation, Mike.
Pleasure.
And also your work on the translation project, that's excellent. Thank you for
Mhm.
doing that and putting yourself out there.
Yep.
I like your idea of putting high school students to work in the classroom to help them as well as you.
Yep.
So thank you for that. And so a question I have is, I know you talked about Experiences Canada where the students would go to Quebec and some, I don't know, if students would come this way, but
Yeah, they do come in that way, yeah,
it's a switch.
it's a switch, yeah, absolutely.
And do we currently have have we been doing anything do the
They-
students ever go to Quebec? Have they gone?
The last time I believe the French immersion students went was with Cindy Stevenson, probably about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It's really difficult because when you're trying to find and apply for the program, they need to find another school or another town that is willing to come to and reciprocate it. Cindy Stevenson was really lucky because she happened to know someone through her master's course and they were kind of bumping back and forth. That's where I kind of hoping that some of our former teachers, French immersion teachers who are now back in Quebec or back in the Ottawa area might be willing to come back and depending on where they're at. So yes, so they're still willing to come here, but we haven't done it for a while. Although that same program, I believe there's a high school class that is doing that currently and they're using that same program.
Is the funding we receive, is it federal government that organizes that and then passes it through, or where does that?
For the for the Experiences one, that's a federally run program. So all we'd have to do is really apply. I think it's about $250 application for the whole group. Then they would, once we have a sister school to kind of match up with, they would take care of all the paperwork. They do all the criminal record checks. And I think they fund up to 3 adults to go with that particular group. And again, they sister you with a different school, all those particular kids. They pre-screen all the parents, all the other things. It's a great program. And it's an affordable program. That's what I kind of really like about it, because all said, the parents would only really have to pay about $250 for a processing fee, and then whatever spending money they decide they want to give to their teenager to go away with. Whereas some of the more private ones, there are those ones out there, but they end up costing about $4,000 per child, which is tough, especially when you have band and basketball and other things to pay for. It's a tough expense to ask for. I would love to, but you know, if there's a federal program that's willing to pay the majority of that one, why not? So
Because the federal government, you would think, would be keen on educating students that are not in Quebec on speaking French.
And that's the
So
cool part about that
why-
program is those kids would then come back for a week here too. So we can show off some of the great things we have in our communities, right? So, and there's lots of things that we can show them off in May and stuff too, so.
Then also I'd like to thank you also for expressing your asking for learning services to help the students out and for your EA support. So thank you for asking that.
So, and it's not an easy one, I understand that, I can ask you guys all you want, but trying to find people who speak French in a very small community like ours, it's difficult, it's tough to find them, but when we do find them and highlighting and putting in those right positions, I think that's what's key to helping the program overall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Dalton?
What's the age group of the student that needs to travel?
The travel, the mandatory age is, the minimum age is 12, and so they have 12 to 17. And so, yeah, it's anywhere in between that range, minimum 12.
How many student can travel?
They tell, when I've inquired about, they say anywhere between up to 30. Although when I inquired originally about a middle school group and taking grade 7s and 8s, because that way they're over the 12 age limit. Some of the grade 6s still are 11. They said, you know, if you have about 40 kids, that's something you can do. So I think maybe we could do 2 trips, maybe one highlighting for a middle school and then one highlighting for a high school.
Can you just maybe have just 20 student?
Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. As many who want to really sign up and go for it. Yeah.
Trustee Sanchez? You're muted.
You're still
You're still
muted, Lisa.
muted. We'll see if it's on our end. If you click ask to unmute. The top one, yeah, there you go. Now, can you unmute Louisa? You're still muted.
Joys of technology.
You're more than welcome to put it in the chat if you like. It's okay? Okay.
Good hand gesture. right there. The language still goes even with hand gesture.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said 33% of our French immersion are Indigenous students.
Mhm.
Do you know how that compares to the provincial average?
I'd definitely say it's a little lower. Yeah, I would think so. Well, especially when we compare, you know, Prince Rupert generally compared to it, it'd be definitely lower. I don't have the data on the French immersion across BC. That one I couldn't tell you. I'd have to look that up a little better, but my guess would probably be pretty high. You know?
Sorry, so my question is, for our provincial, our average is 33.
Yeah.
Indigenous, our percentage is
In French
33%
immersion.
Indigenous in French immersion.
Yeah.
And you're thinking the provincial average is higher?
No, I'm not,
Thank
yeah, sorry, clarification on that one. I'd say we're definitely lower compared to the rest of Prince Rupert. You know, if we compared ourselves to the English program, you would probably be lower. But on a provincial average, my assumption, we'd probably be on the higher end.
Yeah,
I'd have to
mine too.
find that particular one, but
Yeah.
yeah, just given, you know, Prince Rupert, and, you know, our high Indigenous population, my guess is we'd probably be on the fairly higher end of that part. Yeah.
And I also would like to thank you as well for for having goals and sharing your goals with us and having a direction for where you'd like to see growth in French immersion.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Yes, trustee Meyer.
Just more of a comment. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming. And, you know, I have 2 children in the program, one graduating this year, one in grade 5. And I hear a lot of parents who are on the fence about French immersion. And usually they lean towards English because they're so worried that their kids will not be able to spell or write an essay. And I constantly hear, no, they're terrible at English.
Yeah.
You know, I have a like I said, a grade 12 graduating this year who's very well in English. She does very well in English. And, you know, she puts the E's on a lot of her words. I'm like, that is not a feminine object in English.
Yeah.
That's
kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm wondering if you could just speak to that because it's being recorded and parents might watch.
No, absolutely. The big thing, and you're right, absolutely. One of the big major myths or fears is, well, they're gonna really struggle at English, but as I said earlier, we happen to live in an all French or English environment. So as soon as we step out of those walls, you're hearing English, you're seeing English, you're talking English, and stats and even our own current stats still prove that by grade 7, French immersion students are on par, if not ahead, of their English compatriots on English course. So the stats just don't lie. As soon as, you know, the first couple of years as they're starting to learn English or French, both of them, there is some variance there, but by grade 7, they are on par, if not ahead of where some of their English compatriots are in terms of English. So that just, it's a myth, and I'm glad that you are happy to try to clarify that, just because you're right. I mean, you know, those are some big fears from parents, and I understand that too. You know, my parents had the same one when I was in French immersion. They did not speak a lick of French at all. They were just putting us into our teaching program to make it happen, so, yes.
Yeah, and I find, if I can just do one more comment, and then I see, I think.
Yes,
Louisa
she is.
unmuted herself.
Yes.
I have family in Ottawa, and their French immersion program only runs from grade 4 up. So they get 100% English until grade 4, and then they slowly transition. When I was talking feelings about it and telling them how this program, how our provincial government, I believe it's all provincial, K to 12, and how, you know, how my kids are doing and how our district is doing. They just kept saying, oh my goodness, you know, I wish that Ontario was the same way, because they found it a struggle to start in grade 4.
Yeah.
Because they had learned, you know, you had to kind of relearn sentence structure and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I just wanted to.
It's amazing to see them by, you know, grade 1, mid-grade 1, where they are fully chatting away in French and understanding what you're telling them and singing the songs and doing all that fun stuff. So
Yeah.
it's always kind of a pleasure to watch them, for sure.
It is fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Trustee Sanchez.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Mike, I'm really impressed with this, with your goals, especially the first one with translating the Tsimshian language to the French classrooms. I think that was really wonderful. And again, I like your goal number 3, the credits to work experience and to get grads to be, you know, to work out as EAs in the schools. I've never seen this before, and I'm really impressed. And I just want to congratulate you on the work that you're doing. Keep it up, because I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, yeah, like I say, it's kind of one of those things where if we already have the French resources here, and it's rather hard to find French resources in our area, if we already have them here, why not try to rework it so they can help us and then also give them some different experience as well. So.
I have one more question, and I don't know that you'd have the answer.
Yeah.
But is that the trend across the province, that by high school, like I noticed that our numbers are about half in high school is what are enrolled in elementary?
Yeah.
Is that a provincial trend?
About there, yeah. I'd have to look at specifically, but yeah, there's always a large segment that ends up leaving the program after entering middle school, and then another one when they enter the high school. So yeah, sadly, those are the ones where it just becomes tougher. Some families just say it's not for them, some leave, but yeah, no, absolutely. Try to do our best that we can do that. But the big one too is just keep trying to get more kids into the program. So currently we have 14 French immersion students registered for next year. So obviously we want to get that a little higher to closer to 20, but just keep pushing those ones and keep building the program little by little. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation tonight.
Great.
Thank you. And before we move on to the approval of the minutes, I did want to note, I forgot in the beginning of the meeting that trustee Pucci and trustee Beal have sent their regrets for this evening. So approval of the minutes of the open board meeting held on February 20th. Trustee Dalton, seconded. Trustee Meyer, would you care to speak to your motion? Wonderful. Motion on the floor, all in favor? So moved. Necessity of closed meeting and agenda. Trustee Meyer, seconded trustee Warren, and all in favor? Approved. Correspondence 5.1, none. 5.2, copy to the board, wishes of the board. Trustee Warren?
The 521 through 524. Which.
Receive and file.
Receive.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Dalton, would you care to speak to your motion? Please.
Fine. Okay, so the first two letters speak to the National Food Program. Something that our schools have been working hard on. And we're currently in the process of even increasing what we've been doing. So we also have the Indigenous Food Program. We will give a presentation to the last meeting, which was fantastic. And so our district has been doing a lot of work within this area. And I just want to note that. We have.
Yes, trustee Meyer.
Am I correct in, and maybe this would be for the superintendent, was there not an announcement that just made, that the province just made that they increased our food program? In my head, it's 20 million. Not to our district, obviously, but that they would increase that, no?
Jerry might be able to speak to it, but I think this is for the student and family affordability.
Oh, okay, sorry, I confused them. You're right, I'm wrong. Sorry, I withdraw.
Wonderful. So we have a motion on the floor to receive and file. All in favor? So moved. Superintendent of Schools report. Sandy Pop or Andrew Summer?
We'll start today with Sandy Kahn.
Thank you. So 6.1.1 field trips are listed on page 16. You'll notice that many of these have occurred, or no, actually only two.
1, 2,
No,
3.
three have occurred already and two are happening. One of them is actually the, part of the Experiences Canada group. Any questions?
Not seeing any.
All right. 6.1.2 enrollment on page 17. I've updated the enrollment graph. And our enrollment, I'm just looking for my sheet of paper. There it is. Our enrollment went down a little bit to 1852. But it's marginal. You've seen it, it just kind of
That's not.
flat line there. And that's because we just did our February count. And sometimes there's duplicate enrollments and things
You don't have to.
that we have to, yeah, not, that'll be next. And, yeah. Any questions about enrollment?
Trustee Horn?
It's just good to see that the numbers have maintained where they're at, that we're doing better than we had in the past, so
Yeah,
it's good to see. Good to see more students coming to school.
we're actually trending up right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, and 6.1.3, superintendent's report. Dinesh, I'll just let you know when to put that one in. Our schools are doing a great job of connecting the students to the community and extending their learning and just lately, Conrad actually today hosted a student art show through a grant, the Jane Goodall grant. And so I think that's quite interesting. Lahaine Elementary invited the Rupert Rampage in to come and read with students. And both Pine and Roosevelt are enjoying a visit from Sparky and the fire department this week. So those are just some examples of how we're connecting with community, but it also does a great job of extending learning for our students. We talked at last board meeting about some of the teams So I just wanted to highlight that the Charles Hayes wrestling team and both the senior and junior boys basketball teams traveled to Vancouver to compete in provincials. And travel to provincials is really expensive. It's about $15,000 per team. And so teams fundraise to do that. Both the senior girls and junior girls teams won zones this year as well. So they won the right to go to provincials, but they chose not to because of the high costs. So that's just something to kind of take note of. And our community is always incredibly generous. So we're very thankful for that. And the other important piece that I wanted to note was that Charles Hayes has a limited budget for extracurricular sports, which they've already exceeded this year. So that's rising costs is indicative of. Yeah, we might need to rethink how we support extracurricular. As was mentioned at our last board meeting, the Indigenous Education Department did a wonderful job of planning our implementation day on February the 16th. And the theme of fostering strength and resilience really connected well to our district priorities, truth and reconciliation and mental health. And also last month, students were able to attend the all-native basketball tournament through the organization of our Indigenous Ed department. So we're very thankful for the work they do around that. With provincial staff shortages in healthcare and in childcare, the ministry has been investing funds into dual credit programs in the province. And here in Prince Rupert, at Charles Hayes, we've been offering for the last 2 years the early childhood education dual credit courses. So that's been 2 years and will continue. And next year, we're excited to be offering an intro to health dual credit course. And we're hoping the year after that to do an emergency services course in partnership with, I can never remember.
BCEHS, BC Ambulance.
Yeah, BC Ambulance, thank you. That's probably the easiest way to, the acronym eludes me. I was going to speak about French immersion, but I think that Mike has done a fabulous job and covered everything I wanted to say. So thank you, Mike. Plans are also happening in terms of early learning around planning for welcome to kindergarten sessions. There's work happening to have those ready in September and to plan some spring transition events for preschoolers to help them prepare for coming to kindergarten. I think also it's notable to talk about the fact we have 9 local ECE early childhood educators taking advantage of the professional development bursary to attend the conference in Vancouver this May. And Susan's been part of making that happen. So that's exciting. Presenting. And we looked at the data from at our large framework for enhancing student learning group last week. So some of the data we looked at were the grade 4 and 7 FSAs, the student learning, little bits of the learning survey, the grade 10 numeracy assessment, the grade 10 and 12 literacy assessment, and the 5 and 6 year graduation rates for our school district.
That's the slide that you would like, is it?
Yeah, if you could put up the framework. Yeah, just the first one to start with. That's our front of our strategic plan. Yeah, so we can look at that for a minute while I talk. I'll get to the grad rates and then we'll go down to the bottom of the mesh. So we had the groups looking at in terms of our priorities, but also in terms of age groups, looking at the data and looking for concerns, trends, successes, celebrations. And so I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple things because it's a lot. So our scores are lower than the provincial levels in literacy and numeracy. And scores are already low in the province, lower in the province. As a matter of fact, I was at a highly performing systems all suits meeting in the end of January. And the countries that were there all were, expressing their concerns about declining literacy and numeracy rates in their countries. So it's something that's worldwide. It's not just BC or Canada. So it's something little interesting piece to think about. So we found that in the elementary and middle school, that literacy and numeracy scores continue to decline. And that our Indigenous students are still tracking lower than our non-Indigenous students. So that's, right now, I'm kind of focused on the priority about equity. Our scores, we're also celebrating the fact that our literacy 12 results are more aligned with provincial averages. That was kind of a surprise to us that we're on track there. So I'm getting out of line here because I'm adding things. I should take my notes. Also, we noticed that our literacy 12 results are higher compared to our literacy 10 results, which made us wonder about that. By the time they're in grade 12, they are doing better. However, in terms of equity, our Indigenous students are still tracking lower than non-Indigenous students on our literacy and numeracy 10 and 12 exams. So I'm going to get Dinesh just to bring up slide 11. You can move it down there. I just pulled a couple of these. This is actually data from our SharePoint. So this is not in the public data, but I thought I'd just share this with you today. We've just, our 5-year grad rates, and this is the 5-year, for completion rates, have increased from 60% to 82% for all students, and that's worth celebrating. However, our Indigenous student rate, and that's not shown on this slide because that's in a different report, but increased from 52% to 72%. So there is a 20% increase. It's still not at parity though, and that's our goal, is to reach parity.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
To get that.
yeah, we were pretty excited
Such a
about
good
that.
report.
Because we're not, we were not seeing a lot of things to celebrate with our younger kids. But at the high school level, we saw some things that we could, you can see that the work is coming to fruit. Yeah, it's progressing. It's not there yet, but it's progressing. So, Dinesh, if you could go to the next one, is the 6-year rate. So the difference between the 5 and the 6 is that with the 5-year rates, this means the students enter in grade 8, and 5 years later, when they're in grade 12, they graduate. With the 6-year rate, it means that they have an extra year to accomplish, to complete. So the 6-year grad rates are showing that all students went from 71% to 92%, which is at parity with the provincial average. Like, this is huge.
I think it's better news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Indigenous student rate went from 57% to 73%. So another improvement. So in both the 5-year and the 6-year rate, the Indigenous student rate went up to 72 and 73%. So that's very encouraging. I just wanted to share that. And I think at the next boarding, I'll share our findings from this meeting around the other priorities, truth and reconciliation, and mental health. It's a lot. So you can have a look at our data, and for the public, our public facing data is at studentsuccess.gov.bc.ca. And when you go there, you can find the 2023 School District 52 report that we were looking at, and the How Are We Doing report for Indigenous students. So those are documents that anybody can access. Not masked, or, well, it's masked. It's masked, but it's accessible. Yes, masked and accessible.
Any questions? Yes, trustee Horn.
Thank you, Sandy, for that. That's good news to hear that those things are happening in our school district. The link that the parents could use is it on our website that they can find it? Is it possible we could put it on there?
We could, it was down for about 3 weeks, which was as it, as we're updating it, but yeah, we could link it. Probably, yeah, I'll have to talk to Nash about where, and Superintendent Sam, where, how is it to put it to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? One thing that I did want to bring up that I hadn't really taken into consideration until I was sitting at Charles Hayes PAC meeting is equity and our students traveling for sport. And what was shared was that in the South, a student may get 80 plus chances to play against other teams and be seen by recruiters and be seen by universities, etc. And our students might get 2, 5 if they're lucky. So I think perhaps that's something that the board would like to explore. I'm just offering, perhaps writing letters or connecting with other more rural districts to see, to just talk to the government about equity around that as well. Yes, trustee.
And on that point, the rural remote network is one of their priorities is exactly that.
Well, that's wonderful to hear.
So if the board wish to put something into that as well.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Any other questions for Sandy Kwan? Thank you so much for your report.
Well, yeah, just further to the acting superintendent's report, I just wanted to say that during the spring break, you're going to see some machinery around the Prince Rupert Middle School as part of the new process to design the new school. There'll be some drilling. There'll be drilling holes on the property, and also this Thursday and Friday, the architects and the project managers will be here consulting with teachers and students and support staff about the design of the school. And so if you see people wandering around the town, they do have some free time. They're looking for Butsy Rapids, they're looking for all sorts of things to experience. And so just welcome them if you see 4 people looking and pointing up into the sky, not knowing where they are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And thank you again, Sandy Pond. I know you love data. However, there's a lot of data that I'm aware you work with. And so thank you for bringing that to us in the framework and also here. Thank you. On to, is that complete? Superintendent report?
Yes.
Complete, wonderful, thank you. Secretary Treasurer report.
Thank you. So page 18 and 19 are the 2 regular February reports. If you go to page 19, this is the report by category. So I just wanted to highlight a few items. So if you look on the far right-hand column is the year-to-date variance. You'll see some variances there, which I'll just speak briefly to. So education assistant salary, that looks like currently right now it's under budget by 120,000. Part of that is because some of our EA positions weren't filled in the beginning of the year. As of right now, they currently are all filled. Support staff salary, it looks like it's about $130,000 under budget. For that one, I do need to dig a little bit deeper into to find out why. I will note too, this was a very quick month-end turnaround this month. I haven't had a chance to look into that too deep yet. And then the substitute salary looks like it's actually over budget currently by 94,000. This month is spring break though, so that will help us a little bit with that 2-week period where we won't have substitute costs. And we're hoping by the end of the year, it kind of evens itself out. And then the last one is services and supplies. That one looks like it's currently under budget by 277,000. And just for those of you who don't know, in this month report is the first monthly financials where I added the 1.055 million replacement for the middle school. So that's included in both the year-to-date actual figures as well as the budget figures. So that's part of the reason why it looks like we're under budget. And then also too, just the timing of how services and supplies are spent throughout the year is hard to budget because some expenses are spent at the very beginning of the year. Some are spent at the very end of the year. And then also in June, we also have some accruals that we do at year end, so that is taken into account then as well. That's it. Any questions?
Trustee Horn?
Yeah, on page 18. Line 1141 and under transportation again 41. Each of these numbers shows a bit less. Is that balanced because it's a 12-month number, not a 10-month number, or is there another reason why that would be?
Sorry, just for clarity, on which number are you?
So
referring
line 11 in function 4.
to? And then the available.
Coming down, the business admin and both in all. So it'd be line 41, 41, 41.
And are you,
So is there a reason why those numbers show a little bit lower percentage?
oh, the percentage? So on the second report, so we changed that this year, where the second report is actually taking a look at the whole year, so it's taking into account what, I guess, from report on page 18 is 10-month and 12-month.
Yeah.
And it's doing a calculation to see what it should be
Okay,
overall.
thank you.
Any further questions? I have a question just regarding plant maintenance with the negative 861,000. For February, in this.
Of the February one. Yep, so that one is because of the adjustment for the middle school.
Right.
So it was a credit to expenses in the February month. That's the answer.
Perfectly. Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you. And now we can move on to 7.11. A capital, and I'm aware that perhaps this should have been housed under the Finance and Building Committee. However, this is where we placed it.
That's me.
Trustee Meyer?
Okay, so, I'm gonna let, Brittany speak to this, but this is, we made this resolution for our capital, so the resolution for our capital plan was approved by the board in our January meeting. But I'll let Brittany, kind of do the breakdown before I start reading.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is part of the current year, so the 23-24 capital SEP. This project is called, or being referred to as plumbing upgrades. Just as a side note though, back in January, we were referring to it as sprinkler upgrades, same project. So the dollar amount for this is 550,000. These upgrades will be done at the Charles Hayes Secondary School, Conroy Elementary, and Roosevelt Park Elementary.
And if I could just offer clarity as well, as a parent who was once sitting in those chairs, this isn't money that could have been used for anything else in our district. This is money that is only available for this. So just for a bit of clarity.
Yes. Okay, so, and I just start at whereas?
First, we need a motion.
Oh, a motion, yes.
Motion for dual 3 readings in
Yes.
one.
Yes, thank you. Are you making that motion? Or you're
You want to
making?
make that motion?
Make it yours.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Seconded. This is awkward. How about you make the motion?
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
make the
Thank you.
motion to do all 3 readings today.
Thank you very much. And all in favor? Great. So move for 3 readings. Thank you.
Okay. So now I can start reading. Whereas in accordance with section 142 of the School Act, the Board of Education, School District Number 52, Prince Rupert, hereinafter called the Board, has submitted a capital plan to the Minister of Education, hereinafter called the Minister, and the Minister has approved the capital plan or has approved a capital plan with modifications. Now, therefore, in accordance with section 143 of the School Act, the board has prepared this capital bylaw and has agreed to do the following. A, authorize the Secretary Treasurer to execute a capital project funding agreement related to the capital project contemplated by the capital plan or the capital plan with modifications upon ministerial approval and proceed. Sorry, wow. Approval to proceed commence the capital project and proceed diligently and use its best efforts to complete each capital project substantially as directed by the minister. C, observe and comply with any order, regulation, or policy of the minister as may be applicable to the board or the capital project. And D, maintain proper books of account and other information and documents with respect to the affairs of the capital project as may be prescribed by the minister. Now, therefore, the board enacts the following, or as follows. 1, the capital bylaw of the board for the 2023-24 capital plan as approved by the minister to include the supported capital project specified in the letter addressed to the secretary treasurer and superintendent dated March 11, 2024 is hereby adopted. 2, this capital bylaw may be cited as school district number 52 capital bylaw number 2023-24 CPSD S52-03. Read a first time the 11th day of March, 2024.
Seconded trustee Horn. Sorry, and for clarity, do I ask for all in favor at this time?
Yes.
All in favor? Wonderful. Trustee Meyer,
Read a second time the 11th day of March, 2024.
seconded trustee Dalton. All in favor?
And read a third time past the 11th day of March, 2024.
And just all in favor now, correct?
No second.
Seconded trustee Horn, thank you, and all in favor? Wonderful, so moved. Thank you. 7.2. Operations Department report.
Opening it up for any questions?
Page 20 of your package. Oh, and James is online as well. Thank you, Miss Trustee Horn.
It's good to see that the kitchen renovation of this building has begun. Again, working on our ability to provide meals to our students.
Thank you. Anything further? Wonderful. Not seeing any. 7.3, Information Technology Department. And we have our Information Technology Manager present as well.
So again, opening it for any questions?
Not seeing any. Thank you. Committee reports, Finance and Building Committee, Trustee Meyer.
Where is it? We have our, well, that was just these, right? Page 18. We don't have it in. Right?
Here, right?
Yes, okay.
Wonderful. Framework for Enhanced Student Learning, Trustee Horn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a meeting which Sandy gave us some response back about it earlier in her report. There's a lot of data, like you said, and it was good to get a chance to work with the staff and go over the numbers and get an in-depth look into the numbers. So I'd like she reported there was some good things to report out. That was good to see. So yeah, that's my report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, please.
Question, and I don't know if it'd be more to you or to, Ms. Pond. Will we be doing a board working session on this data?
Yes, my understanding is that is in the works.
Perfect.
Yes. Yes.
I cannot hear
Oh,
sorry.
we were just talking that we have in the works plans to have a working session regarding data.
it. Is there a time frame or no?
At the current time, staff is seeing when that might be able to fit in before the end of the year.
Madam Chair, after the budget, after May is when we'll be ready.
Provincial Council, trustee Horn,
Nothing to report other than upcoming meeting at the AGM.
thank you. Indigenous Education Council, we have not met. And trustee Horn Policy Committee.
So, I would like to make a motion.
Prior to that, 8.5.1, the meeting minutes.
Okay,
Can I just do an amendment to
Sure.
regarding 2360? Just the employee conduct regarding, and then just to have the wording reflect what the new title possibly of the policy might be.
Right.
And now, I don't know if there's any other questions regarding the meeting minutes. Wonderful, not seeing any. Over to you, trustee Warren.
thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to approve policy 6250, district parent advisory policy on page 23.
Seconder for that motion, trustee Dalton, did you care to speak to that, trustee Horn?
Only that I believe there was no changes. Come back to that. I should have actually just asked that question, rather than just say it.
You're correct.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve the policy. All in favor? Thank you. So moved.
And motion to send for review, policy 1610, field trip policy. 2340, release time of staff to act as resource personnel policy. And 2360, employee conduct. This is where the name change is somewhere, right?
Yes, on the last page.
Is it on the back page? There we go. Employee conduct regarding political and or religious activities policy.
Do you have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Meyer, and did you care to speak to any of these policies for review?
Yes, not much has changed on any of these policies. As you can see, there's not a lot of change. But what we did make ask for a change was in the title of 2360, so it reflected better the operation of the policy.
Any questions from any trustees regarding these policies? Not seeing any, we have a motion on the floor to send out for review, and all in favor? So moved, thank you. 8.6, District Technology Steering Committee, trustee Horn.
District Technology Steering Committee did not sit since the last meeting.
Old business,
There is none.
wonderful. New business, 10.1. We, in September, I believe, I could be totally wrong. I'm not quite sure, but we made a temporary adjustment to move our board meetings from the original scheduled Tuesdays to the Mondays for many reasons. And we put that into place until this meeting. So we currently, if nothing changes, we will be shifting back to our regularly scheduled meetings. And I would open the floor for discussion of trustees. I have trustee Horn and then trustee Dalton.
Can I get a reminder, please, Chair, of the reasoning behind the move to Monday in the first place?
It was due to what was happening at our board office.
Yeah, burden of staff at the chair and just the workload at the time.
So has that changed?
Somewhat.
So my question is gonna be then following, is it gonna be better that we hold it, continuing to hold it on Monday?
Yes, there are things that I cannot release just yet. Or, but obviously we have plans to ameliorate these issues with plans.
So my thinking is gonna be that I'm going to ask that we continue meeting on Monday and just to out that stuff. That will be my.
I would offer, perhaps we would like to look at putting something in place that this is until the end of the year and then to revisit. Or just for clarity, board members ran with the commitment knowing that what days board meetings were held on. My understanding is Monday gives a bit more time for people to get ready for our Tuesday meeting. People may have ran this commitment knowing that it was a Tuesday, just things to keep in mind. Also, if we change this going forward forever to Monday, that is a bylaw change. And just for clarity, you're saying that it is better on Monday for the time being?
Well, Madam Chair, I think as you say, traditionally, for the first 10, 11 years of my career here, it's been on the third Tuesday of the month. And that's what's in your policy, that's what's in your bylaw. So if you're going to make a change, we're post-COVID, you're going to make a change, you can make it permanent, or yes, you can extend your short-term change in meetings as well. But then it's a question of where do the trustees wish to go with this? So for certainty for the board, for us to know what day will it be.
I have trustee Dalton, where did you want to speak to this? I'm sorry, we're hand up after trustee Warren,
Yeah.
and then I have trustee Meyer.
Okay, well, go for it. Care either way, I just need to know, because
Like,
I have other stuff.
trustee Meyer,
So I had to miss a couple of, doesn't look good.
I could go either way. I personally like the Tuesdays. But I'm all for having it on Monday, especially like for the rest of this year. I'm totally okay with the Mondays, but for next year, if it can be, I do like having it on the Tuesday. But again, I'm pretty flexible.
and I would offer for something that if we were looking at changing the bylaw, I feel this would be a conversation when all trustees are present.
And partner groups.
Well, it will go out to partner groups as well. So my curiosity then is, well, if we are asking to extend our amendment to our bylaw, we would need a motion to do so if the wishes are to remain on the Mondays going forward for the school year. Trustee Warren.
I'll make such a motion. For the remainder of the school year.
My apologies if that was kind of muddled. And we have a seconder for that motion. Trustee Dalton? So for clarity, we are continuing on Mondays, third Mondays until the end of the school year, at which time at our June meeting, we will revisit. Wonderful. All in favor? Wonderful. Approved. So moved. And information items, spring break is now. We have this week and then, as of Monday, we're on spring, well, we aren't, but people aren't on spring break until, 28th. And then which is a Thursday, and then Good Friday is March 29th. Easter Monday is April 1st. So for absolute clarity, our spring break connects to Easter long weekend. And then our Board of Education meeting will be on the 15th, I believe. If we are, which would be a Monday. And then Professional Development Day regionally is April 19th.
It says 16.
Yes, but that's a Tuesday. And we just agreed to extend it onto Mondays.
Disagree.
So, 10 minutes question and answer period.
See?
Going once,
Ask yourself a question, maybe?
Sometimes it's better to shut up. That's
second call for questions. And third call, thank you all for spending your evening with us, and if you are getting March break, have a safe time and please do all that nourishes all of you. Thank you so much for spending tonight with us.
Bring back the sun if you're going anywhere.
Adjourned.
Friday.